الرحيم.
الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh, and welcome to Islamic Oasis Live. As you know, brothers and sisters, inshallah, before we start the show, there has been another attack in front of Shifa Hospital in Gaza, uh, another bloodbath taking place right in front of bloodbath of children and women and elderly and those who are sick, and ambulances are being attacked, and the doors of hospitals are being are destroyed, and Allah knows what else is happening that we don't know of. This is what we know. This is what is coming out of Gaza. So please, brothers and sisters, make sure to make dua, and make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not only removes this bala, of course, this testing time for the brothers and sisters in Gaza, but also that Allah Azza wa Jal brings an army that will remove this occupation once and for all, bi'iznillahi ta'ala. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your and mine du'as for our brothers and sisters there. And for now, brothers and sisters, we know, many of you know Brother Jake. I'm going to give you a little background of our brother Jake Brancatella. I hope I didn't kill the last name, but Brother Jake is also known as Jake the Muslim metaphysician. He debates atheists and Christians, deconstructing their narratives and presenting Islam. He has his own YouTube channel, as many of you are very well aware, known as Thought Adventure Podcast. He's also worked on many courses on Christianity that he helped ICNA, and also Why Islam and Sapiens Institute. This is, I think, with Brother Muhammad Hijab. He has a bachelor's in criminal justice, also another bachelor's, mashallah, in philosophy, and now he is working on his master's in philosophy and theology. Brother Jake, welcome to Islamic Oasis Live.
Assalamu alaikum. Thanks for having me on, Sheikh.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
It's my pleasure.
It's our pleasure, Sheikh. Allahumma barik. May Allah accept it from you. Akhi, let's begin with the introduction that I gave regarding what's happening in Gaza. Of course, we have a topic for you, which is, the reality of truth and the post-truth world. But Sheikh, you're seeing what we all are seeing on the screens, the bloodbath that is taking place in Gaza. Every minute we are hearing something new, a new massacre, a new, every minute almost. We have teams in Gaza, and they're constantly telling us what's happening if we can get in contact with them. Sheikh, from all of the experiences that you've had discussing with, these liberals and these atheists and in kuffar in general, what goes on in your mind when you see what's happening in Gaza?
Yeah, so before I get started, I know that you did already, but I just want to make dua for the Palestinian people. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will swiftly deal with the tyrants and oppressors, and that he protect our Palestinian brothers and sisters,
I mean,
both their iman and their dignity and their honor. Ameen, ya Rab.
I mean,
Honestly, Sheikh, I just recently got the message, and I saw this horrific, absolutely horrific video of what just happened in, apparently the Israelis attacked the front of the hospital and destroyed some ambulances, I believe. I didn't even get a chance to really get the full details of the story. I just saw the video, and honestly, I'm at a loss of words. I've seen a lot of terrible pictures and videos, but I just posted a status about this on Twitter, and I said I don't know how much longer I can look at these images and videos. It was particularly this one, for some reason, just really struck me, and it's difficult for me to even talk about, to be honest with you. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's just it was so terrible when I saw that. Um,
it is, Sheikh.
yeah.
It is,
So,
and
but
it is something that, I mean, if this is, yani, I mean, this is part of Iman. We all are feeling every moment of this. It's what the Ummah is going through, the pain and the suffering, and it's beyond belief. Yani, 24 hours is we're thinking about what to do, what can we do, what needs to happen. Where are these, governments in the Muslim world? Where are these, forget the Muslim, yani, these governments, but akhi, all these people who always talk about human rights and international law and talk about women's rights, feminists. Where are all these people now, Sheikh? Where are they? What happened to their long tongues? And did they go blind? Did they go deaf? Do they not have hearts anymore? All of a sudden, they're not pumping any blood anymore. What's going on, Sheikh? Or is this the reality we should
honestly,
have known?
yeah. I mean, I think that's right. This is the reality that we should have known. And one good thing, if I can even say that, I know it's terrible to even think of that, but one good thing that I think has come from this is that so many people have been exposed as hypocrites, complete and utter hypocrites. There's no question about it, Sheikh. The amount of people that act as if they stand up for, supposed human rights and international law and human dignity and all of these things. What we have seen is that so many of them, and especially these news media outlets, we know all the alphabet news media outlets, they're being exposed as a bunch of hypocrites, and the people will not forget, especially the Muslim people and the people that stand up for true human rights and true human dignity. They will not forget, and of course, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala will not forget on the Day of Judgment. These people are going to be held to account, not only for supporting the tyrants and oppressors, even those who are choosing not to speak against them, right? People are going to be questioned about this. Why didn't you knew what was going on. Why didn't you actually report on this accurately? Because something that I think is so important, and I've been speaking about it with some of the brothers that I'm close to, and what I noticed, and maybe it was partially because I was a bit naive. Um, I knew that there was biases in the Western medium. I mean, we all knew this, but for whatever reason, I don't know. Um, Really, over the past few weeks, Sheikh, I've really woken up to just how strong the propaganda in Western media is. It is so unbelievable. Of course, I knew it existed, but I didn't realize it was to that extent. And over the past few weeks, I've realized how important it is for Muslims to develop our own independent media outlets. So like what we're doing here on this live stream with Islamic Oasis and what many other brothers and sisters are doing is so important now more than ever for us to develop our own platforms where we have the freedom and the opportunity to speak the truth. That's because this is what it's about. I mean, obviously what's going on right now with Palestine is horrific, but it's not only that. There's so much oppression and tyranny throughout the world, and where Muslims are being oppressed in various places like Kashmir, like with the Uyghurs. And for such a long time, I feel like we have relied on other platforms. We're asking to be invited to certain media platforms without mentioning names, and we're desiring to be on their programs to get it. And I think that's a good opportunity for us to do that. But I think now more than ever, I think the Muslim people need to realize how strong the Western media propaganda is at brainwashing people. I mean, to be honest, here in America where we live, Sheikh, I mean, some people, they never get to hear what the truth is because they're watching Fox News and CNN, and they don't really get to see the Muslims and the pro-Palestinian side of the story. At least not if it is, maybe they bring it on for 1% of the time. So I think we really need to wake up to see how strong the Western media propaganda is. And one of the things I think we need to do is create an initiative about, starting platforms like this, whether it be on YouTube or television, because there are some that exist without naming names, but they have certain constraints. Let's just be honest; they're not completely free to say whatever they want. And so I think we really need that, and I think it can be very powerful because even with all of the oppression and the bloodshed and the horrendous things that we're seeing, one thing that I do see, and they've taken a poll on this, I think both in the UK and America, is that even with the Western media propaganda, because so many Muslims have spoken out and posted things on their Twitter or YouTube or various other places, that now more than ever, the Zionists, they cannot hide what is really happening on the ground because we're able to share these images. We're able to share the stories of the Palestinian people. We're able to share these videos, and it's had such an effect that it's changed the public opinion. I think over 60% in America, just as a recent poll, said that they are calling for a ceasefire. I think it was more than 70%, I think, in the UK. And those numbers are not the norm of what we would expect because, unfortunately, the West, especially places like the US and the UK, overwhelmingly have had support for the Zionist agenda. And it's because of all the propaganda that I'm speaking about now. So I know I've given such a long answer to your question, but yeah, I think that what has happened is it has exposed the hypocrites. If you're, and I just have to say this bluntly, Sheikh, if you are on the side of the, and I don't want to make this a Jewish thing because not all Jews agree with the Zionist agenda. We see there are some Jews that are actually speaking out against the Zionists, right? But the Zionists, if you are on the side of the Zionists and all of their talking points, you are on the side of oppression and tyranny and bloodshed, and there's just no question about it. If you're on the side of the Palestinians, then you're on the side of truth. You're on the side of humanity, right? And I say this very bluntly because that's the case. And so there's been a line drawn in the sand, right? And Palestine will always be a line in the sand for the Muslims. If you're on the side of those oppressing the Palestinians, that's a line in the sand. And unless and until you change from that position, not only should the Muslims boycott any people who are doing that, boycott companies. I know there's been a lot of talk about that. Maybe we'll speak about that more. But yeah, it's very clearly there's been a line in the sand with the what's going on in Palestine, and the hypocrites are being exposed.
Sheikh, let me ask you this. Of course, the hypocrisy in general, whether it's all these different uh, groups in this country, whether it's media, whether it's institutions such as media or feminists and this and that and the other.
Mm-hmm.
Sheikh, when you think of the Muslim rulers, when you are seeing what you're seeing, I mean, you came to Islam. What Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, and then when you look at their behavior now as a Muslim, I mean, what goes on? What do you think about? Meaning that so much has happened and is happening, and we see that people are having dance parties in Saudi Arabia, in the land of Tawheed.
SubhanAllah.
And so, I mean, someone that came to Islam, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, and when you see that type of hypocrisy there, yani in the middle of genocide, where even non-Muslims are speaking up, even non-Muslims, as you said, even Jews who don't support Zionism and are out there speaking, and they're going in front of all these institutions and saying enough of genocide, not in our name, and all those kind of things. And then you're seeing Muslims in Riyadh, in the heart of Saudi Arabia, or so-called Saudi Arabia, are dancing to the Western beats, literally. So, tell me your thoughts.
Yeah,
Sheikh.
I mean, honestly, yeah, of course. I'm somebody that converted to Islam, and I have enough sense to know that this is not right at all. I mean, I don't think any Muslim can support this in the right mind. But I don't know any good solution to it. I pray. I've been doing a lot of live streams recently, Sheikh, on everything that's going on in Palestine. And I try to remember that every time I make dua about what's going on, of course, I make dua for the Palestinians and their people, and for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to remove the tyrants. But I also make dua that Allah guides the Muslim rulers to not only publicly, but also privately support the Palestinian cause in any way that they can. Because the honest reality is, when stuff really starts getting making big news, when there's big headlines about another attack that happened in Palestine, we may hear an occasional statement from a Muslim ruler showing sympathy or support, right? But we need more than that. That's not enough.
This time there is no sympathy or support. That's what I'm saying. But I mean, it's beyond. I think what's the frustration is that, like you said, hypocrites have been exposed to a point that there is no more question regarding the hypocrisy of these people anymore. And that's subhanallah, Shaykh, Allah Azza wa Jal, always brings these. There's always things that happen that define the lines between al-khabith min at-tayyiba, in from good and from to bad, and from the hypocrisy to iman and all this. It seems that the Muslims have constantly. I'm getting emails, texts, people asking me to sending me news pieces from across the Muslim world saying, how can this be while this is happening? The Muslim rulers are talking about this and this and that other. So I guess what I'm asking is that what is your when you're looking at the rulers in general, or when you're looking at the Muslim youth dancing the way they're dancing in this genocide, what goes through your mind? I guess that's what I'm asking. Meaning that, have they become so low? Okay, it's a different thing that I understand, Saudi, whatever is going on. But in this particular time, where the whole Muslim world is literally in almost a depression, that we can't even get a bottle of water inside. And here we are in this area that is considered so holy and so high, people are literally dancing. So I guess somebody that is from the West, I guess that's what I'm saying. That what are you thinking, Sheikh? Why do you think this has happened?
I mean, I don't want to go into conspiracy theories, but obviously, I think that the reality is, unfortunately, the West has a lot more influence than many Muslims would like to admit or like to accept. And to the extent that they have influence over policies in Muslim lands and different things that are happening in there. And I mean, we can see it's influenced the public. And let's not make it seem, I'm not saying that you're doing this, as if everything that's going on is bad, because of course we still in the Muslim lands we still have Muslims that
Mm.
have protested, that
Yes, of
have
course.
been sticking up for people. So there's always going to be amongst the Muslims a remnant that is going to stand up for the truth,
Mm.
and that's what happens. But you see, with the issue of the rulers, um, and they're not probably going to watch your stream, but if I could speak to them, and what my message would be to warn them about, they you have to understand there's a difference between you and I sitting here on this live stream, and we don't have the same level of impact that these rulers do. They're controlling entire countries and nations and Muslim people. So what they have to realize is that with that position of influence and power comes so much more responsibility. You see? So the amount of responsibility that they have, they should fear Allah, because they are going to be judged based on what they did with this level of influence, power, and responsibility that they have. And of course, we can try to advise them and try to speak to the people that are in their ears, um, and I pray all the time for their guidance, because in reality, um, I would not want to meet Allah Subhanahu wa Taala on the day of judgment being a ruler in this situation and not responding the right way. It's actually, they should be scared. They should fear Allah, because it's unbelievable what this could make or break somebody. You respond the wrong way in this situation, you're going to be held accountable for it. So it's something that when I look at it, I said, wow, if I were in that position, at least I think and I pray to Allah that I would respond in the correct way. Honestly, I fear for some of these rulers, and all
Let
we
me
can
ask you
ask
this.
for
Let me
is
ask you
that.
this. What you are an expert in speaking when it comes to secularism and liberalism and Christianity. Akhi, when
Mm,
you look at what's happening in the Muslim world, or when you look at in general what's happening, uh, what has happened now? What is secularism now?
mm.
And
Yeah,
I'm
so I
saying that
mean,
in the light of in the light of what's happening in Gaza, meaning uh, the way secularism was presented, that this is now
mhm,
this is the light that the world needs, and this is what's going to bring peace and security and prosperity to the masses, not only in the West but also in the East. This
mhm,
will be the reasons for peace and everything else. And now we're literally seeing secularism played out
mhm.
in Gaza.
Yes. Yeah, like I said, I mean, we cannot deny, and this is the unfortunate reality, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rectify the affair of the Muslims, but the honest reality is that because of various factors, colonialism, money, power, so many different things, the West has influenced these different Muslim countries, right, where majority Muslims are living. And uh, I don't certainly don't know the ins and out of it, but from what you're talking about from a secular perspective, What they want is, or what they at least put forward, what they advertise, secularism, complete freedom. Basically, you do whatever you want as long as you're not harming other people, right? Um, so you're free to say whatever you want. You can say blasphemous things, right? They don't care. Look how it is in the US. You can make have South Park cartoons where you are mocking prophets of Allah. You're mocking Isa alayhi salam, and so many different, and this is supposed to be Christian majority nation, right? um, we see the result of what secularism has done in places like Europe, and especially, Sheikh, I think you would see over the past just 10 years, exponentially has gone crazy in the US. But from an Islamic perspective, we cannot accept that. We don't accept, this is not our paradigm. Our paradigm is not, oh yeah, you can say whatever you want. No, there are rules and laws and regulations that we believe are from the creator, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we are prescribed to follow them, right? This goes for the Muslims on the street, the common Muslim on the street, as well as the ruler. They are supposed to be ruling by what Allah has sent down, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed, not what uh, America tells you to put in place, or whatever various governments, right? And unfortunately, that we can see that the money and the power and the influence of the West has been so strong that it has compromised a lot of not only the Muslim rulers, but even, because we know once you get the head of an organization or the head of a country, it starts to trickle down. And this is why it's so dangerous. If you have a corrupt ruler, or you have a fasik, who's basically open sinner as a ruler, this is so dangerous because now it starts to influence and trickle down to the common people, right? And unfortunately, this is what we're seeing in certain Muslim lands. So the secularists and the places like the US and the UK, and I'm just naming them because those are what I'm most familiar with, they clearly have an agenda. They want to destroy Islam. Why? Because what we saw, in what they talk about, the Enlightenment period, right? The Enlightenment and Renaissance period and all this kind of stuff, it was born out of Christianity in the West. Why? Because unlike Judaism and Islam, Christianity did not have a strong understanding of law, right? With this idea of, well, Jesus dies for your sins. So, okay, basically, you could go out and do whatever you want, right? And I know many Christians will object to this, but it's the reality of the situation. You can see that this type of secular ideology of completely what they call separating church and state. We don't believe in a separation of mosque and state, right? That's not a Muslim position. They have this idea of separation between church and state, which happened over the past, whatever, 300 years. And we can see the result of that. What is the result? Many of the Christians are losing their faith, even in God whatsoever. They're becoming atheist. We have the and things I can't even say too openly on the stream, like the rainbow and alphabet community and all this other garbage being spread. All of this is a result of a fundamental weakness in Christianity, which is they do not have clear definitions of laws that they are supposed to follow. And it's because of their idea of Jesus, peace be upon him. Of course, we don't believe this, but supposedly dying for their sins and all this kind of stuff. That's not the Islamic narrative. Islamic narrative is not separation between mosque and state. They're supposed to be one, they're supposed to be together. And the problem that we're seeing now is that because of influences like these Western powers, we are seeing more and more a separation between the mosque and the state. In other words, what the rulers are ruling by and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed. And when you see that gap keep spreading wider and wider away, this is going to be the result, unfortunately.
Sheikh, I mean, of course, you're talking about the compromise that made between the clergy and the thinkers at the time, that they, because
Mm-hmm.
there was no concept of law, as you were saying. I mean, there was a constant battle between in the dark ages between these two parties, if you want to, in many ways,
Mm-hmm.
two institutions. Sheikh, now when we look at the Muslims,
Mm-hmm.
and when we look at the spread of secularism and nationalism in the Muslim world, and I mean, obviously, with this situation in Gaza, we are also seeing that it's becoming a Palestinian problem, or it's not our problem,
Mm-hmm.
it's their problem. And of course, you're
Mm-hmm.
talking about the influence, of course, but have the what happens when Muslims start compromising on their on their beliefs?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we saw the impact of compromising, the impact that the Christians, in general, compromise when they compromise with their religion. We are seeing the effects of
Mm-hmm.
it. Now, what happens with the Muslims when they compromise? And secondly, do you think that many
Mm-hmm.
of the Muslims even realize that they're compromising because of lack of understanding secularism?
Um, I think I think a lot of them don't understand, not only because of not understanding what I just explained, what happened in the so-called Christian West. They don't understand that history and how it's related to what's happening now in certain Muslim lands. Not only that, but it's also a lack of knowledge when it comes to Islam.
Mm,
If they understood actually what Islam teaches and had a better understanding of that, then you will know automatically anything that opposes it, whether it be secularism or how can you say Christianity or Judaism. Doesn't matter, whatever ism, feminism, whatever ism you want to put on the end of it. If you have a foundational understanding of the religion of Islam, you don't even necessarily need to study all of these things, because if you know what the haqq is, anything that's opposed to it, okay, there's a problem here, something's wrong. Maybe you don't know the details exactly, you don't know the history, okay, no problem. So it's not only of us not understanding secularism and feminism and where all of these different things come from. It's also Muslims lacking foundational understanding of their own deen, of their own religion. And part of the problem is because of the Western influence on education, right? The Islamic education, even in Muslim countries, is not stressed to the level that it should be, in my opinion,
of
right?
course.
And because of that,
I mean, they actually
you
fight
have,
Islam in the Muslim countries, and the rulers are fighting
yeah,
Islam.
yeah.
They don't want any
So
Islam at all. I mean, of course.
yeah, but even when they, I'm saying, even though they have, you say, okay, this guy, he's got uh 60 minutes, 1 hour a day, he has a class on Islamic studies or something. Let's just say this is not enough, right? And even what they claim to be teaching in there, we don't know. I mean, the details of the curriculum. So all of this, right? We're seeing the result of it. People dancing around. They care more about, oh, is this person coming to sing tonight in this place, or whatever else, the entertainment. And it's not. It's what I said is true because of the influence on from Western society, but it's fundamentally because Muslims don't understand enough about their own religion, and it's because they have not been taught it well enough, right? By, as I'm explaining, we know that in most countries, who controls the education? The government controls the education. So why are they not educating Muslims to the point that they should be? Well, maybe they don't want to. Okay, maybe they have a certain agenda in mind. We don't. I don't know what. It depends. We have to look at individual countries, but this is the point. We have a sheikh. We have a systematic problem. We are in a point of crisis. This is the reality. We need. There's so many things that we need in such a little amount of time. As I was mentioning earlier, we need media platforms to be able to speak the truth and properly, yes, influence, but in the right way, influence the public. Okay, not only that, we need a grassroots project to completely change these terrible education systems that are existing in different Muslim countries. But in order to do that, we also have to have the right people in places of government, right? Because they're the ones that control education and these different activities that are haram and everything else going on there, right? So we are at such a and I don't mean to sound doom and gloom, like right, world ending type of stuff, but this is the harsh reality, that Muslims are in a situation where we are at a point of crisis, and we need a spiritual, we need both a spiritual and intellectual revolution. This is what we need. We need a spiritual and intellectual revolution. The Muslims are in absolute desperate need of this. And until we get that, until we have a systematic change in the Muslim world, I fear that we're going to be in a lowly position. And let's be honest, the Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, he predicted that this was going to happen. We know this. It's in the prophetic narrations, the hadith, that this was going to happen. That Muslims were going to go down to a low place, and in the hadith says it's not because of our numbers, right, Sheikh? They say, oh well, is it because of your numbers? No, the Muslims are how many in the world? 2 billion now, and yet we're in this position, right? So we have to have at least comfort in that knowing that this is prophecy. This was prophesied by the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. That doesn't mean now we just we throw up our hands and say, oh well, this is qadar Allah, this is going to happen, and that's it. No, we're still supposed to do it, like the hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, where he says, what, you tie your camel and then you go into the masjid, right? The Muslims, we still have to do our part, even though we knew that this situation was predicted by the Prophet, peace be upon him. So I know I said a lot, but there's just so much we have to do, and alhamdulillah, venues like this and organizations like Islamic Oasis and various other organizations, we really have to join together to make much bigger changes, right? That's the honest reality.
Sheikh, they want me to ask you this very specific question. If you can bring that question up, it says, what does it mean when people say live in the post-truth world? I guess they want me to get directly to the topic, but we are talking about the topic, right? I mean, we're talking about the influences of all these ideas, because I actually wanted to ask you also, once, if you can answer that, but also, what do you mean by intellectual revolution? And, what has to happen in order to, for instance, I'll give you, first, go ahead, answer this question, I guess,
the post-truth
world.
Yeah. So another thing that came out of the failed Christianity, let's just be honest, it's a failed religion, right? And it's largely responsible for a lot of the decline and the secularism in the West and everything that's going on. And this is my interpretation of the question, but this is how I would understand it. One of the things that came out of what they want to call later on the Enlightenment period and post-Enlightenment period and all of this, not only secularism, and feminism, but also a radical type of subjectivism, right? It's like this, Sheikh. I have my truth, and you have your truth,
Mm.
right? Everybody has their own truth. So, well, this person, he can believe he's a woman, but he's really a man, right? I mean, well, that's his truth. I mean, that's what he says it. So we just have to accept it. And this person believes that Christianity is true, and this person believes Islam is true. Oh, well, this is my truth, and that's his truth. No, this is not. This is not the Islamic position. There's one truth, right? There's one truth, and everything else is falsehood besides it. But the reality is this is an outgrowth of the same problem, same secular, really it's a failed religion. It's out of a failed form of Christianity, where you get these different things like secularism, like feminism, and this radical subjectivism, in which either there is no truth whatsoever, it's just everybody's opinion, or at the most, oh, there's truth, but it's just subjective truth. There's no objective standard. There's no objective truth. Because
Hold
if
on,
you don't have God,
Sheikh.
yeah,
Just to that point. That's why I didn't want to lose you here. But look,
yeah,
when I look at what's happening, let's say now in Gaza,
hmm,
there is a truth that they want us to believe. I mean,
right, yeah,
they believe. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is it when they talk about truth, is it truth depending on the interests at the time?
hmm,
Because
hmm,
you must believe that there
yeah, it's to
is.
suit their own narrative.
That's what I'm saying. So
It's to suit, yeah,
I guess that's what I'm
yeah, it's
asking
to
you is
suit their
that
own
they know
narrative
what
and
is the
desire.
truth, but but it depends on the interests of a certain
Hmm,
people, certain institutions, and then that truth
hmm,
has to be believed by you and me, even though it goes against my own senses and your senses, because what I am seeing is completely contradicting what they
hmm,
want me to believe.
hmm.
So,
Yeah. Well, see, this is the thing. We go back to this power struggle. The people who are in position of power, the people in high-ranking positions in government, the news media, these are the people that are most to blame. Why? Because they are the ones spreading the propaganda about what the truth is. The truth is what's filling their pockets and their stomachs. That's the reality. I mean, the truth is what is coinciding with their own desires, right? Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, uh, look at those people who make their own desire into a god besides Allah. This is what these people are doing. We see it. I mean, we see what's happening right before us. What these people are doing, their own desire. Why? For money or for power or for fame. All of these different things. Now, the common people on the street, right? The common people on the street, the common American person on the street, maybe, Allahu Alam, maybe it's because they're so brainwashed by what they've been fed, right? Since such a young age, they are fed this constantly in the media, right? Like, for example, back when I was not a Muslim, let's say, oh, over 15 years ago, I didn't know the truth of everything that was going on in Palestine, or I didn't know much about Muslims other than I was
no,
supposed to be afraid of them.
but how was truth defined to you, Sheikh? How do we judge when something is right or wrong? Was that ever a discussion uh, when you were a Christian? Yani, alhamdulillah, you're Muslim, but I guess,
Mm-hmm.
was there ever this discussion uh, of trying to even define because, it also affects your purpose of life as a human being,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
right? I mean, you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to figure out, yo, man, why do I exist? What's the purpose of my life? What is the truth?
Yes.
So
Mm-hmm.
when those questions came up, I'm sure it came up to your mind. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
that's why you're a Muslim today. How was that
Yes.
answered to you? I mean, and was it ever satisfactory? And
Oh,
if it
from
was,
that.
and why not?
No. No, of course. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I became Muslim is because what I'm saying to you for a large part of my youth, I wasn't thinking about these things. right? I was a troublemaker. I wasn't thinking about what is my purpose of life. Is I always believed in God, alhamdulillah. I always believed in God. To be honest, never believed in Trinity and Jesus is God and He died for my sins, because none of this ever made sense to me. Just from a basic human, even in this, from an Islamic perspective, a fitri perspective, never made any sense to me. But I didn't know anything about Islam. When I met, how it happened for me is I met a friend in high school who was a Muslim. And, I don't know if you had this experience, Sheikh, but this was my experience. When I got older, when I became 18, 19 years old, and I was just finishing high school and going into university, I started to think about these questions. Why am I here? What is my purpose? Where am I going? Do I have a creator? Of course I have a creator. I always believe in that. But which religion is true? This Christianity stuff doesn't make sense to me. So there must be something else. So I actually started reading the Quran originally, and I told this story in another interview, but originally to actually refute my friend. Subhanallah. I was, and not even from a Christian perspective, because I didn't believe in it. I was just a punk, arrogant kid. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala still chose to guide me. When I read the Quran, when it comes to morality, when it comes to theology about who is Allah, who is your creator, what is our purpose, what is this life about, how are we going to be judged, all of these things, which from a Christian perspective didn't make any sense to me, when I read the Quran, made sense. Who is Allah? He's one. There's nothing like him. Who is Isa alayhi salam? He's a prophet, one of the greatest prophets ever, but he's not God. He's the Messiah, but he's not God. He didn't die for my sins. Over and over and over again. One of the verses which is repeated many times in the Quran, which really had an impact on me, is when the Quran says, "No soul shall bear the burden of another," meaning what you do, that you're going to be responsible for that. If I go out and I do something wrong, when this live stream is over, is the Sheikh Muhammad going to have to answer for me? He'd say, no. But hey, everything was fine when we did the stream. Then he left and did something wrong. That's not your problem. That's my problem. So, whereas the Christians, they believe an innocent man died for the sins of all of the guilty. How does this make any sense? How is this justice? So now, when we think, now coming back to the situation, should it be a surprise to us? Should it be Muslims? Should it be a surprise to us that a religion and the people that follow it, like Christianity, has such a distorted, and I can say outright wicked, understanding of justice, in that an innocent person, because we believe Isa alayhi salam was innocent. We don't believe he was killed. They do, but they even say he's innocent, but he was killed. Does it make any sense? Is this what the epitome of justice is? That an innocent man should die for the sins of all of the guilty? This don't make any sense. But if you are coming from a Christian mindset and you think this is what justice is, you have such a distorted understanding of justice, then should we be surprised that they are supporting the Zionists? No, in their religion, they don't understand what justice is. They think innocent person should be punished for the guilty. So
That's what I
now
was.
does it make sense?
That's what I was
Yeah.
going to ask you. That is that understanding of justice, adl, yani that. How does that affect in understanding the truth? What is haqq? I mean, we have
Yeah.
a very clear lines in haqq and batil. Allah Azza wa Jal said, وَجَاءَ الْحَقَّ وَزَهَقَ الْبَاطِلِ إِنَّ الْبَاطِلَ كَانَ زَهُوقًا. Many, هو الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق. So many
Mm-hmm.
ayat, so many hadiths regarding haqq and batil. How does that understanding in their aqidah, that innocent person can be killed for the guilt of others, or the sin of others, or the crime of others, affect understanding what is haqq?
Because very clearly, if a person can accept that, and they believe that their salvation is dependent upon believing that, then they can believe anything. I mean, of course they can believe, even if they believe a Palestinian child who dies, is killed, is innocent. Why would they have a problem with that? They
Oh, there
have
was
such a
Hamas there.
skewed, yeah, because oh well, he who they can make up any story about it. They can make up or any story. They
Astaghfirullah.
believe that God came to this earth. Astaghfirullah, God came down to this earth, and he couldn't do anything. He didn't have another plan. He had to come down and die, and for the sins of the guilty. Now, somebody who has such a skewed, distorted concept of justice, of course, how can he have mercy? How can he have genuine mercy and justice, a genuine concept of mercy and justice when it comes to things happening in the world? We should not expect this. We should not expect this, right? We should not expect, oh, of course, anyone can see. Because if he believes that, what does that mean, Sheikh? His fitrah, his basic innate knowledge and understanding of basic things like truth and justice is so far how can you say obscured, that of course he will look at this and not think something is wrong with it, right? And the Quran, and we have hadith about this as well. We should not be shocked about this. Muslims should not be thinking, oh, shouldn't all of these people see how clear it is? Well, yes, but when their fitrah and uh, their spiritual state is so distorted, of course we should not be surprised that they have this problem
So,
of
Sheikh,
understanding that they should be supporting the Palestinians.
so what happens when you find Muslims? I mean, there's a very good question here. One of the brothers said, he said, then what happens when you have Muslims supporting liberalism or arguing for liberalism, which is, again, coming from such a distorted understanding of what is truth? What do you what do you say to a Muslim like that?
Well, to say to a Muslim who says what? Sorry.
Yani, the thing is, the idea that look, it's so clear. Yani, when a Muslim is arguing for liberalism, right? When they start
Yeah.
arguing for secularism, when they start arguing
Mhm.
for this type of nonsense, yani, what should be our what should yani, is that the intellectual revolution that you're talking about that needs to be done with the Muslims?
No, the intellectual revolution is to train Muslims about what Islam teaches, and not only just what Islam teaches, but why is it correct? And then show them a comparison with what liberalism teaches, what secularism teaches, and show them the result of that. Show them how deficient, how distorted, and what it leads to. And when you are able to explain both the Islamic conception the correct way and why it's correct, and you're also able to show liberalism and secularism and what it leads to and why it's so problematic, then somebody with sense, somebody with honesty, and even a basic level of iman will say, of course, we're with Islam. We don't want any part of this nonsense that they're spreading over here. And what we can see that happened in Europe, see, U.S. it was slightly behind, but now it's catching up rapidly to what's happening in places like the UK over the past 10 years, Sheikh. I mean, I grew up in the 90s. I was born in the early 90s, 91. Um, it was never like this when I was growing up in school. I mean, we didn't have this kind of stuff. What's going on here now? What they're trying to teach to our kids, trying to implement in our educational system. And here's one thing to notice: even people who claim to be on the left and the right in the political spectrum, a lot of people, Sheikh, are waking up to how ridiculous this sounds, right? Like, where does this lead to? This leads to, well, I can come on the stream and I can identify as Oprah Winfrey. I can say, yo, yes, I'm Oprah Winfrey. What's the problem? You see, and we have stories like this in the news. So
I
one
wonder
thing,
if
what
Oprah
I
Winfrey will they give you the money with it, or is it just you can identify as that? Because that's when the truth is revealed. Then the truth is not subjective, akhi.
yeah, subhanallah. But yeah, but this is the thing. What I'm saying is, when I mean intellectual revolution, what I mean by intellectual revolution is going back to Islam, going back to Quran and Sunnah and the books of our tradition, and teaching Muslims the correct thing, and not just to for them just to repeat what we say, for them to understand it, and for them to understand why it's correct. Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveal this? Why did he reveal certain laws? And then show them comparison with the secular liberal society, and how immoral, how ridiculous, how absurd it is, how what it results in. And then I think many people, of course, if they have a sound fitra and aql, intellect, they will not have really any problem in understanding. But instead of doing this, what do we have? We have the spreading of fahisha. We have the spreading of propaganda from the secular liberal ideologies into the Muslim world, and they're paying for it to be there. That's what we have. We have to remove all this garbage, and we have to go back to Quran and Sunnah, right? And teach it to the people, because this is, unfortunately, they're being taught something else. So this is what I mean by intellectual revolution. I'm not calling for uh, I'm not an Islamic reformist, right? I don't believe
No,
that.
no, no,
I
no. I
believe going
understand
back
that. Oh,
to
no,
the
no. I was clear about that. And the reason I'm
yeah.
asking that, Sheikh, is that there's a recent book that came out by Sheikh
Mhm.
Asrar. I'm sure it's called the Intellectual Intifada, and
Yes, I heard about it. I
yes,
haven't read it yet, but I heard about it.
and
Yeah.
and he talks about, and he basically puts out the case for why the Khilafah needs to return. And of course, it came at a
Mhm.
very
Yes.
important time. The timing was almost amazing. I mean, right, what's happening there, and then the
Mhm.
intellectual intifada. I-
Mhm.
Sheikh, and he's a scholar, of course. So he
Yeah.
is. It's very rare to, uh, at least from what I've seen the last at least whatever years, that it's very rare to have scholars like that who are actually writing books like this. Uh,
Mhm.
actually talking about the revival of the Muslims.
Mhm.
And he's putting out the case for Khilafah and things like this, and he's talking about the return of the Islamic State, basically, or the Sharia
Mhm.
has to be. Sheikh, is that uh, as a is this something that we have to also push within the scholarly class? That
Mhm.
because what you're talking about, for instance, how all of this, the influence of liberalism and all of these other ideas that has had, the influence that
Mhm.
has had in the Muslim world. There are thousands of scholars in the Muslim world, and they have been
Yes.
influenced by
Mhm.
this. So,
Mhm.
do we need to talk about the books like this, like Intellectual Intifada, and the
Mhm.
case for the Khilafah?
Yeah, of course, we any Muslim should know, first of all, the that the Khilafah is obligatory to establish, right? I mean, every Muslim should know this first and foremost. Second thing is, Sheikh, although, and this is my opinion, with all due respect to the Islamic education system, even for the scholars, many of our shuyukh are well trained, right, when it comes to Quran and Hadith and Tafsir and the different Islamic sciences. But unfortunately, many of them are not trained in the modern philosophical understandings and things that are pervasive throughout the Western world. They don't know much about liberalism and feminism, and how to refute these ideologies, and what's the history and where did it come from, and understand that, because that wasn't what they were taught in the different madrasa systems and all of that. But I think that there needs to be, if not some level of reform there, we need to, because let's be honest, most of the people, like you're talking about Sheikh Asrar with his book. I haven't read it, right? But I'm taking what you're saying, and that's what he's presenting in the book. We don't have a lot of scholars refuting liberalism, refuting secularism, refuting feminism, speaking out against these things. Maybe they're hafiz of Quran. Maybe they know many hadith. That's great. We need people like that. But we also need, if it's not going to be shuyukh, we need du'at. We need speakers, people like myself. I don't want to say me, but other people who are responsible for researching what the other side is saying. We need our own independent researchers and people who are then going to influence and refute those false ideologies. Because, I mean, many people go through the traditional Islamic madrasa system, but they don't know who is John Stuart Mill and John Locke and these people, and what influences they had. And I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, Sheikh, I'm not saying that every sheikh or student of knowledge needs to study that. No, don't get me wrong. But we need some people, we need a group of people, whether they're going to be students of knowledge or shuyukh or people who are preaching Islam. We need a segment of the Muslim community, and I know people that are doing it, right? You've had some of them on your program before, but we need more of those people, and we need more of those people in higher places of influence. And I believe that the scholars definitely can fill a role and at least facilitate that and help out with that.
But Sheikh,
I think this is extremely important.
when you say that, look, scholars, we don't have enough trained scholars and things like that, and I agree with you, of course, 100% I agree with you, because we see the results of it. But what I was asking is, I guess to follow up on that is,
Yes.
would that be considered a revolt? Because, when you're going to speak against, when you're going to present arguments against liberalism, secularism, dictatorships, and all of these other isms, you are challenging the status quo.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
many of the scholars they depend on the status quo to fill their bellies. I mean, I don't want to put it that way. To be honest, I didn't want to put it that way, but that is the reality. And so I guess what I'm asking is that intellectual revival, and the kind of, and then the scholarly class not being up to date to what needs to happen. I guess what I'm asking is that by design, because they're cutting themselves off, because they I'm not saying they like what's going on, but they depend on this to run their households. So why will they speak against this status quo?
Yeah, part of it is, like you said, some of them genuinely don't have the ability. Let's be honest. I mean, let's just put everything open, right?
Oh, please.
How many scholars who did speak, who did say something? Where are they?
Oh, in jail.
How many shuyukh do we have in prison? Right? How many shuyukh do we have in prison?
No, of course. I'm asking. Look, I guess what I'm asking is, I agree with that. But what I'm saying is that what you are saying, that we have to have people, because you said, look, those people are studying traditional, in the traditional way, memorize some hadith and Quran, and then, But what you're asking,
and it's good.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. But the problem is, we don't need many more parents. But the thing is that what you're talking about is people building thinkers, but the thinkers
Yes.
can't be cowards.
Yeah, oh, of course. Yeah, of course, because it's not just about knowledge, right? It's also about courage, because the haqq it needs to be established. It needs to be proclaimed. It's not something that is just inner dimension. See, this is also another thing that is coming from a secular mindset. Oh, I have the truth. I know the truth. It's in my heart. That's enough. No, many times that's not enough, right? There's some situations where, okay, maybe the person is not in a position he can't say anything right now, maybe out of fear of his life or something like that. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
but part of the problem is from a secular mindset, because it's individualistic. It's not about the community. It's not about the society. It's about Jake and Sheikh Muhammad and this one, Abdurrahman, and this person. Everybody's individual. That's what they want, because they don't want a united Muslim community. They don't want a khilafah. Because why? If the Muslims unite, this is the problem. That's why part of secularism and liberalism is individualism, an individualistic society where you don't even know your neighbor anymore. Even in Muslim community, you don't know your neighbor. Before, what, you have a duty to your neighbor, right? From an Islamic standpoint. Now you don't even know your neighbor. Maybe you see him, I don't know, once a year when he's driving out of the garage or something. But this is part of the secular liberal hegemony and ideology. What they're trying to do, they want to break up the Muslims. Now we have all these different nation states. We have no khilafah. Even in the nation states, what do we have? Every Muslim is out for himself, right? He's just worried about himself. It's not a community. There's not a strong unity from that standpoint. That's what we need. We need the unity, not just for the sake of unity. Of course, we have to unite on the haqq, on the truth. But going back to what you're saying now about the scholars and the shuyukh, of course, we know some have been imprisoned when they speak out. But here's the other element of it. Think about it like this. Why is it the case that the secularists, the liberalists, the atheists, the Zionists, the Christians, all of these different groups, what do they have? They have think tanks. They have millions and billions of dollars behind their organization, funding people full time to what? From our standpoint, to present shubuhat basically against Islam. Where is that from the Muslim side? Where is from the Muslim side that we are funding Muslim think tanks? And I don't mean just going in a room thinking, but where is it that Muslims, traditional scholarship and organizations for dawah, we do have them. I'm not saying they don't exist, but not on the same level as our enemies, not on the same level of the people that we are trying to combat. And look, we are 2 billion Muslims in the world, and we're growing, alhamdulillah. Even with all of these problems, we're still growing, alhamdulillah. This is from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But still, we are one of the biggest populations, and yet where is and I have to say it, where is the financial support from the community to support these initiatives? Right? We're not doing that. We are so far behind when the Christian organizations, the secular organizations, these Jewish organizations. I mean, the level of production and how many employees they have and how much money they're spending on this. Where is that from the Islamic side? I'm not saying it doesn't exist at all, but we are so far behind, Sheikh.
No, I agree with you, but I still need an answer of the question that I was asking, which is, you are, once you take a stand against these isms.
Yes, you're gonna be. Listen,
so
you're gonna be in big trouble.
You're gonna be in big trouble. So you need I mean, mashallah, tabarakallah, we have brothers like you and
But
others.
that's why I'm saying that's why we need Sheikh. I'm sorry to cut you, but
So no,
that's why
I get
I'm
no,
saying
please. I just
we,
want to put just so that you can continue.
yeah,
The scholarship that we have today obviously is not there, and the
hmm
syllabi or the syllabuses or whatever that they
yes,
are not there in order to produce the kind of people that you are talking about, because many of them
hmm
are worried about protecting the status quo. So, but you are
yes,
actually what you are presenting is a, 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 a program that is going to build
yes,
actual thinkers who can not only answer
hmm
these things but produce more. So,
hmm
uh, are you willing to
yes.
take that burden? Uh, because again, you are standing against the status quo.
Yeah, I am. I've been doing it, alhamdulillah.
Yes,
But of course, but my part right now is relatively small, right? I don't have as much influence um as I would like, and but this is the whole point. Yes, I'm willing to take a stand. Maybe Sheikh Muhammad's willing to take a stand.
I'm with you,
But
bro. I'm with
what
you.
we, yeah. But what we need is we don't just need people who are willing to take a stand because we have that. What I was trying to point out now in reference to the scholars, part of the problem is what? They are to a certain level controlled by the state. Why? Because they're connected to the state. So what we need independent grassroots organizations where, listen, I don't want to take a donation from somebody who is saying, "Oh, Jake, I'm willing to fund your project, but guess what? You can't say this, or you can't talk about this, or if you do, then I'm gonna, oh, this is gonna happen." No, we can't have that because this
Actually,
is what's
to
called.
be honest, I'm gonna say something I usually don't say. I had a masjid called me today, and they wanted to say,
Mm,
oh, they wanted to donate, whatever,
mm,
and they told me, oh, you didn't pick up your check. I said, I'm not going to pick up the check. So they said, why is that, brother?
mm,
Because they said, literally, there are people in the boards
mm,
who were against me when I gave a khutbah regarding Masjid al-Aqsa. And when I asked that why, how come the
mm,
armies of the Muslim world are watching this and no one wants to move? I mean, what else do we feed them for? This went,
mm,
this was so, uh, disliked with certain members of the board that they're just, okay, of
mm,
course they banned me from speaking, but and then when they
mm,
called me today and they said, "Oh, but brother, we have a check for you ready," I said, "I don't want that money because if I take that money, there'll be no barakah in what I am doing." So they
mhm.
were shocked to hear that somebody would just say, "We don't want that money," and not because
Yeah.
this, only literally because I believe taking that kind of money, it's haram, and you're actually telling me not to speak the haqq, and so that's why
hmm
I'm giving you this money.
hmm Right.
So
No,
to your
exactly. I mean,
point,
yeah. Yeah, no, I mean that's the perfect example of that, right? And we can bring on other people who have had similar experience. So this is what I'm saying. We need people who are trained, who are able to respond to shubuhat and put forward the haqq, put forward the message of Islam, right? And produce more and produce more of these thinkers like you're saying. But that's only going to happen if we are getting funding from the right sources that are not requiring us and trying to control what we can say, what we can't say. Oh, you spoke like this. You can't say that, brother Jake. You got to stop talking about this. No, if we have that, if we compromise on that, it's we're not going to be able to get the message out there, and we're constantly going to be controlled by these different people. That's why me, if for example, if I was starting a program and I say, okay, my budget is this, I'm going to need this amount of money, and somebody comes to me, okay, Jake, yeah, we'll give you $1 million and we're going to fund this whole project, but you can't speak about um, you know, LGBTQ, or you can't speak about feminism, or you can only do one lecture per month on secularism. I'm sorry, I'm not interested in what you have to give me. I don't want your money. I don't care about your funding. You see? But part of the problem is that in these, not only Muslim countries, but even in the US and in the Western world, we are being controlled by people who are funding us who do not have the Islamic interest at heart.
Mm.
That's what's happening. Okay? We need genuine, sincere Muslims, brothers and sisters, who are willing to fund the right projects for the sake of the truth and not for their own narrative and wanting to control everything that the people are going to say and what they're going to do. And really, Sheikh, we're really behind in this. I'm sorry to say, I'm not happy to say it, but behind the Christians and the Zionists, and they have a lot of funding. How do you think? You think that people just woke up? Because think about this, right? We believe what people are born upon the fitrah. People are born Muslims, and what does the Hadith say? The Prophet, what the parents and the society make them into Jews and Christians and whatever else, right? So these people didn't just wake up one day and all of a sudden they, wow, how are they so immoral when they see a child die? How does that happen? How is a human being go from a point of basic morality to now when he sees a child die, it's nothing to him. It's like, oh, okay, these are a bunch of terrorists. Even we heard people in government saying, oh, these children, they're terrorists too. They're just like everybody's the same, right?
I
How
heard
does
one
this
guy was saying
happen?
that, oh, we are killing them because if they grow up, they will be just like them. I mean, literally,
Of
I saw
course,
one of the
of course.
rabbis
I've seen,
saying that if,
I've
yeah.
seen they talk about it like cancer. You know what they say? The children, it's like a cancer cell. If you leave it there to fester, it's going to get bigger and bigger, worse and worse, more cancer. This is how disgusting. Now, here's the question, Sheikh. These are human beings. How did they get to this point?
Mm.
They only could get to this point by being brainwashed, by propaganda, by complete distortion of the truth. And that is happening through the education system. Look what they're trying to do in the US, bring it into the education system. They know through media, through education, through these various ways, this is how they brainwash and manipulate people. They can only do that if they have a lot of money behind them. So, of course, they're funding these projects. They're not stupid. They don't have the truth, but they're not stupid people. They know how to manipulate people, how to manipulate the public, and they're having the funding to do that. So, why don't we have enough genuine funding from the Muslim community to fund the correct people without these political constraints and all these other concerns to defend and establish the truth? This is the big problem we have. And
I
some people
think
don't like to hear it. They say, oh, Brother Jake, Sheikh Muhammad, aren't you doing this for the sake of Allah? Well, yeah, of course. But guess what? I have to feed my family. Sheikh, you do. Other people, we have to feed our family. So we need people that are going to be able to be paid full time to refute the shubuhat, to research the stuff that's going on. I've done videos on my channel recently where I expose this whole thing. I don't know if you saw, Sheikh, Netanyahu, the prime minister over there
mm,
in what they call Israel, right? He called the Palestinian people Amalek. Did you hear about this? He called the Palestinian people Amalek. I don't know if you know about this term. People don't know that this is a code word for genocide. This is a code word for genocide. And you saw the PBD podcast, right?
yeah,
You told me you
yeah.
watched this. Sheikh, what I want you to do, I'm going to send you the clip from the video. You go back and see exactly what I said in that PBD discussion. Netanyahu, just less than 1 month later, he said exactly what I said in that podcast. What did he do? He called the Palestinian people Amalek. Who are Amalek? If you look in the Old Testament, Amalek were a group of people that God, according to them, we don't believe this, but God, according to them in the Old Testament, commanded the Israelites to slaughter, to completely kill them. And I don't know if you remember this, but they, these people, a bunch of hypocrites, they like to attack Islam. Oh, it's violent or has jihad or this and that. I said, okay, no problem. What about when your own Bible, when it says this, and I read this passage, let me just read this here, where this is in 1 Samuel 15:3. Okay, so for people who know the Bible, 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 3. Now go attack the Amalekites, the Amalek people, and totally destroy all that belongs to them. Do not spare them. Put to death men and women, children and infants, cattle and sheep, camels and donkeys. So this verse is supposedly from God, telling the Israelites to go and kill the infants, the babies of the Amalekite people. Okay? So we don't have, and I said, we don't have nothing like this in Islam. The Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, what he said, you cannot kill non-combatants. You cannot kill women. You cannot kill even religious clergy, the priests and the rabbis. If you cannot
This is
kill
in the
them,
Quran.
you cannot, yes, you cannot kill the children. This is our position. Yes, we believe in just warfare. We can go to war, but there are rules at war. You cannot, and donkeys and animals. The Prophet ﷺ said, don't even cut down the tree. These people want to even kill the donkeys and the babies. Now, I said this in there, and they said, oh, well, that's the Old Testament. But, nobody,
Yeah, I
that's
remember that.
happened 1,000 years ago. Those, some people even say they're just fables, and the Christians never interpreted it that way. You know what? Get the hell out of here. We just have now, less than 1 month later, Sheikh, the
SubhanAllah.
Netanyahu in a speech to Israel refers to the Palestinian people as Amalekites, as Amalek. Now, the Jews who know their scripture, they know what that means. They know who Amalek is. The verse I just read says what? Kill the babies. Kill the babies. Kill the infants. So if the Palestinians are Amalek, we can bomb them and we can kill their babies. No problem. You see, so he's speaking what? He's speaking in coded language to his people, to his audience. Now, the common person, the 65-year-old white woman living in America watching Fox News, she might not even see that. And even if she does, she doesn't know what that means. She doesn't know what that means. But somebody like me, I know what that means. And the Jewish people and the IDF soldiers who are bombing people, they know what that means. He's calling for genocide right there on live television. And nobody's saying anything about it. Where is it? Nobody's talking about this on Fox News. And I just saw recently, actually, one article wrote on it, and we're defending him saying this, calling Palestinian people Amalek. It's disgusting. And this is, how did we end up in this place? How did we in this world end up in this place? It can only be explained by a systematic decay and basically completely destroying society, right? Why? Because they're manipulating media, education, and all of the key fundamental points in society which are needed. And unless the Muslims wake up and do something about it, it's not going to, we're going to see more bloodshed and more problems.
SubhanAllah, Sheikh. Jazakallah khair. That was needed. SubhanAllah. Allahumma barik, ya Sheikh. There was a question I think they had put up there. I didn't see it, Sheikh. There was. Did you want to put that up there again? Uh, I guess this is because of the time. I'm going to ask you if you're still okay with it, Sheikh. The question, it says, Jazakallah khair, Brother Jake and Sheikh Shirazi, for holding this discussion. From my knowledge, philosophers from the Eastern tradition came up with the legal frameworks such as Unitarianism to judge by. These frameworks give principles for what we call liberalism. Can studying the Aqidah also be used as a means to critique their foundations and critique the Islamic worldview? hold on, use as a means to critique their foundations and articulate the Islamic world.
Okay, accent. Yeah, yeah, of course. That's why I said, and I just want to be clear because I don't want the audience to be confused as if I'm saying that the Islamic traditional learning system has major problems and the shuyukh. No, I'm not attacking the shuyukh. What I'm saying though is, Sheikh, we do need, as the questioner is rightly asking, yes, we do need some people who know what liberalism is, who know what he said utilitarianism is, right? Some people don't even know how to say it. How can you refute an ideology? You don't know how to say it. You don't know what it means, anything. So you need, unfortunately, we need people who study this, who have a strong foundation in the deen, but are studying these things because why? The shubuhat are coming from that area. So if we don't know what they are and what is their foundation, what do they stand upon, how can we attack their position? So yes, of course, we need people who study that stuff. I'm not saying everybody. No, 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 not everybody. But there needs to be a certain segment, a certain portion of the Muslim community that is trained, that researches and studies this stuff and refutes the shubuhat, because this is where it's coming from. Yes, utilitarianism is the idea that basically what's good is judged on the greatest good. They say, this is a phrase that comes from it, the greatest good for the greatest number of people. This is the idea, right? And so you have that, and then you have concepts like when it talk about freedom, complete freedom of speech, and what do they call the harm principle. Oh, if nobody harms me, then it's okay. No, we don't believe that, right? I mean, I don't want to get explicit on the channel, but we can think of certain things that are considered immoral, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us is immoral, but it's not necessarily harmful, but it's a shameful act. It can be it's considered immoral. So these ideologies, utilitarianism, liberalism, they are completely against the Islamic paradigm, right? We have certain pillars or foundations that Islam stands on, right? So if we want to teach somebody what about Islam, that's one thing. Okay, we teach them the 5 pillars, 6 pillars of Iman, right? But what is it about when we want to respond to what these people are saying? Especially if you're in the West, right? And you have a child and your son comes up to you, "Oh, Dad, what do you think about liberalism?" Now, I turn around and say, "Well, I'm sorry, son, I don't know what that is," right? That's now maybe he's got a shubha. Maybe he heard something on YouTube, he watched some video, right? Even at least if you don't know, right, you could at least point him in the right direction and show, oh, now I have to study what this Muslim said. He explains it. He tells me why it's wrong. So yes, we need at the very least a group of Muslims that are studying these false ideologies and refuting them. And yes, we need to, I'm sorry, I have to say it, we need to fund organizations and thinkers and think tanks to be able to do this, right? Otherwise, we're always going to be from the behind, right? Because dawah and dealing with the shubuhat should not be just, oh, done something on the side. Right now, Sheikh, I have a full-time job that I do. I'm working full-time. Then I come home. I have to, of course, I have a family life that I have to attend to. And then on top of that, I'm trying to make videos. I'm trying
Yeah,
to
no, I
explain to the
understand.
people what's going on in Palestine. But these people, like, let's talk about it. Ben Shapiro, I don't know if you know this guy,
No, of
Ben
course.
Shapiro, with the Daily Wire. They have over 100 employees. Do you know how much money is behind what they're doing? How much content and propaganda they're pushing out there? And it's not the truth, but look, how many millions of followers do these people have and influence do they have? Even Muslims watching Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson,
Mm,
right? We don't need to get our information from them. They should be getting it from Sheikh Muhammad and other people, right? But the problem is these people are beating us when it comes to the information battle. Now, of course, with Palestine, we've been winning, especially lately with social media, because it's so clear. We've been spreading that around. But I'm saying, yes, we need people that can study it, but we also need the funding from the Muslims, and without constraints, without the constraints.
Subhanallah, Sheikh. It's been an hour and a half, and we can continue because I
Alhamdulillah.
have a list of literally about 20 more questions that I've been given. That's coming. So so we're gonna have to go into part 2 of this. Because
Yeah, inshallah,
there's no
definitely.
it's been an hour and a half. I know I'm picking your brain, but there's literally another 5 parts, and then each part has questions to be, and people are submitting questions and things like that. So, Sheikh,
yeah, we can do a series, inshallah.
yeah, we have to do a series, inshallah, Rabbil Alamin, because I still wanted to ask you some of the things that I saw that happened on that discussion at PBD discussion, some of the hypocrisy that I saw, and I wanted to ask you that, mashallah, you guys did an amazing job on that too. But again, if I start that's going to become another hour discussion. So, inshallah, with this, Sheikh, Jazakallah khair for coming on the show. And believe me, this will not be any, this is going to be a series, bi'iznillahi ta'ala. And we really, really appreciate it, Akhi, that you took the time to come on the show, and with all of the things that you're already doing. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect and preserve you and give you and open the doors of khair for you to continue doing what you're doing, Sheikh. And I do agree. I agree that, our thinkers and our intellectuals need to be supported, funded. And also, we need... we don't have a choice in this. With the amount of pressure that our youth are in, and the Muslim Ummah in general, we need people who can do the work and have been given the time to do the work, especially the kind of...
Yes.
No, I understand. So inshallah, I will continue this discussion on the next series, inshallah. In the next discussion, Jazakallah khair for your time, Shaykh. May Allah accept it from you. And for the brothers and sisters, and brothers and sisters that are watching this, again, do not forget your brothers and sisters in Gaza, and continue doing whatever it is that you can do. And some of the things that you can do is, I heard today a brother giving a good khutbah, mashallah, and one of the things he forgot to say, I'm going to say it here, but one of the, the 3 things that he mentioned, that those who have the ability to be online like this, who have means to speak, who have a platform, whatever it is, on the media, continue doing that work, because it's obvious it is having effects. People are listening, people are sharing, people are talking about it. The kuffar in general are losing the media game because of the work that people like you and I are doing, and Brother Jake is doing. Number 2, brothers and sisters, don't forget them in your du'as. It is very important. Don't forget to teach your children what's happening. Don't forget to, make sure that your children understand that there is reasons why this is happening. And that's the point I wanted to get to. And also we kind of mentioned it, and that is because there is no leadership that actually represents the Muslim Ummah. Our thinkers are not funded. Our armies cannot move. Our resources are tied. The people who we have some of the most amazing soldiers in the Muslim world, and they are tied. Their hands are tied. And subhanallah, and we are told to sit and watch the bloodletting of our brothers and sisters while hospitals, schools, masajid, and everything else is being attacked, and then we're supposed to sit there and watch this. So, one of the works that has to be done also is that you ask, we continue pushing our sincere elements within the Muslim armies, that you cannot continue watching this nonsense. You have to fear Allah Azza wa Jal. You're going to stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Jazakallah khair again for watching. Jazakallah khair, Brother Jake, for coming. May Allah protect, preserve you, and give you. And we'll see you tomorrow. Oh, by the way, before I go, tomorrow we have Dr. Akmal live from Pakistan. He's going to be discussing the situation of Gaza with us, as what he's seeing on the ground in Pakistan, and the political events taking place in Pakistan due to the effects of Gaza, and some of the other things that are happening as in the political world in Pakistan. So see you guys tomorrow, 8 o'clock. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
لا لن ديننا لن يضام، نحن جيل الهمام، نحن فينا عمر، لا 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 لن يطول الظلام، ديننا لن يضام، نحن جيل الهمام، نحن فينا عمر.
صبح بدا نور ظهر، نجم وشمس وقمر، ألقى على الدنيا الدرر، هذا عمر هذا عمر. كل البرايا تنتظر أيامه البيض الغرر، كي تستفيد من العبر، هذا عمر هذا عمر.
لا لن تدوم الجراح، بل سيأتي الصباح، نحن أهل الكفاح، نحن فينا عمر، لا لا لن تدوم الجراح، بل سيأتي الصباح، نحن أهل الكفاح، نحن فينا عمر.